Hello and welcome to episode 478 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the creator of the comic series Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And a man who's working a week ahead, because just a minute ago he thought it was 479, but he's still with us anyway, so that's all that matters. It's Tony Esmond.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. We have a very fun show for you this week. As
almost forgot to do the intro.
We almost forgot to do the intro. We are talking a little bit about. Well, we've started to talk about the topic.
Is that a Siamese cat?
The one that just jumped out. No.
Yeah.
Dan just had a cat walk onto his camera, just a Zoom camera.
So it might be your dad's.
Yeah. More about that later.
That's a call forward.
There's a call forward. Yeah. This show works on so many different levels. And this week we're talking about the if you're a soul creator, if you're creating comics, webcomics,
soul man.
On your own, if you're a soul man,
movie, it's horrible.
No,
it's terrible. Awful film.
Awful. But the
good music though.
Yeah.
The chat that we had with Richard McCrae of the Silverback comic is not awful. In fact, it's fantastic, and you'll learn some stuff, and you'll finish the chat a better human being.
And then I dig into your psyches.
Yeah.
Do you?
Thankfully, it's not a video show.
Is that I'm like Dr. Ruth Weisenheimer?
Yeah. Where we all look at ourselves and the sort of creators we are, and even Tony isn't exempt from it. We're forced to take a good hard, and I mean hard,
very hard,
probing questions.
Cat couldn't scratch it. Look at ourselves.
Yep. And do you know what else no?
Global Comics makes you very hard.
I tell you what, it's hard to find something you don't want to read on Global Comics because
I think the word we should use is difficult. Let's stay away from hard just for 5 minutes.
Stay away from hard.
Where are you now? Sorry, put you off.
Yeah, well, that's all right. I mean, it's the sponsorship ad, so
they love it.
Yeah, they love it, and you'll love Global Comics as well, because if you go to globalcomics.com, that's comics with an X, or download the app, then you'll find a huge library of titles available to read from thousands of indie creators, hundreds of publishers like Image, Boom, Tokyo Pop, TKO Studios, Source Point Press, Mad Cave Comics, Humanoid, Dynamite, to name but a few, not to mention all of the individual creators and stuff that are on there as well. Catalogue's growing all the time. Chaps, what do you want to highlight this week?
I want to highlight Fangs versus Blades as two of the female titans of Dynamite clash. You got Vampirella versus Red Sonja. Covers by my boy Linsner, but it's written by Dan Abnett, who I know we like. Dan's writing.
Yeah,
Dan's one of the better writers out there, and I always think that it sounds a bit trashy. Vampirella versus Red Sonja, and they have a multitude of books, but it lifts it for me if it's Abnett writing it.
Oh yeah,
totally. I think he's going to have a good approach. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. It's got art by Alessandro Rinaldi and Pascal Colano, and it's just a fun read. Dynamite's a fun company. Go read some of it. There's no depth. There's plenty of boobs. Just get on with it.
They decide who's the superior warrior by
what
wrestling
recommendation.
Usually their tits touch at some point.
They're wrestling in a vat of chocolate.
I'm not saying that's the policy of the people creating the covers, but I would say there's a good chance.
Yeah. It's not editorial diktat that happens. It just happens.
Sometimes they can just be near each other.
Yeah. Anyway,
right, my one.
Dan, have you got?
Yeah, there's a creator appreciation selection of books picked by the staff of Global Comics, and who picks better comics? They've done my job for me. So we've got Badoom, we've got Celestial Wise, we've got Falling Awake, we've got The Astronaut, Zombie Terrors, Nottingham, Leave the Light On, Halloween Man, Tether, and a whole bunch more. Go check them out.
The great thing about Global Comics is the people that make the app and that work there read comics.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. That sounds like
I know, like
you think it's obvious that they would, but
mate, it shows.
Yeah. There's people who edit comics who I'm sure don't fucking read them. So do you know what I mean?
Even the ones they're fucking working on.
Yeah.
But
not the comics of Global Comics. So.
No.
They are a great group of people, and certainly their customer service is also brilliant as well. So if you want to discover some of the books that maybe we'll talk about later on the show. You can discover on Global
Well, yeah,
Comics
there's
as
at least one that's on there.
Yeah. You can go to globalcomics.com and you can download the app now on the Apple App Store or Google Play, and you can start reading brilliant comics like never before. And thank you to them, as always, for sponsoring the show. Thank you to you lovely people who are listening now for listening to us waffle, but enough of us waffle. You want to hear some insight about making comics, because that's what we're talking about this week, isn't it, chaps?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So.
Yeah. So should we just get on with it?
Let's do it.
Right, making a comic is a lot of work, no matter what kind of creator you are. And we are certainly all kinds of creators on this show. And so much time, effort, blood, sweat and tears goes into just one issue. And we've talked a lot about collaboration on this show. But what if you happen to be, and I know a lot of our listeners are, the sole creator on a project? That's what we're focusing on a bit this week. Inspired by listener question, which Dan's going to tee up shortly. And to talk about the topic, we've roped someone in for half hour.
New guest.
Yes, the creator of the superhero webcomic Silverback, Richard McCrae. Welcome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, man. It's been a long time coming. You've Silverback's been kind of like a linchpin in the sort of like webcomic superhero community. It's been around for ages, hasn't it?
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't even aware I had a reputation.
In my heart,
now.
at least.
You will have now.
Yeah, you will have after this. Well, I mean, Dan is obviously... He's down with the kids, isn't he, Tony? Dan knows what he's talking about. He's got his finger on the pulse of...
What do you mean by that? Oh, okay.
Superhero webcomics. And I know Silverback has been mentioned several times on the show. But this is much like Dan, you're the one-man band for this comic, is that right?
Yeah, all the writing, all the artwork, all the web design, such as it is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Done by myself.
Yeah, it's a rough gig, and I can understand why people have questions on the matter. I've got Sarah's question lined up here.
Yeah, let's kick us off with this.
Sarah said, I would love it if there was a Soul Creators Hints and Tips episode. The podcast does a great job of keeping me company on my comic. And essentially, she couldn't spot one on Soul Creators doing their comic.
I think this is something we're going to do a bit more of. We'll get a lot of different sort of voices and different experiences and stuff. But Rich, obviously yours is a webcomic, right? So what is your experience been like before we get into the weeds?
I mean, did you intend to do it from the jump as just you? Was it just you going to do it, or did it just work out that way?
Yeah, I'm just terrible at working as part of a team. I've worked with other writers in the past, but I find it very frustrating waiting for somebody to get back to me with the work that I have to do. I tend to work best just on my own ideas. Put me in a corner.
It's somewhat freeing then, I guess.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Cool. So how did that start, man? I mean, how long has Silverback been going?
It's been going just actually last week or so, I think was the 6th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Nice.
I had a webcomic before that called Dillon in Richmond, which is no longer online. That was running for about 5 years as well.
Wow.
I really just got started with it as I moved into like general professional life, kind of full-time work, all that bump. You notice you just didn't put the time aside for like your hobbies as much anymore.
Yeah.
Or at least I was noticing that about myself. So I thought, well, if I give myself a self-imposed deadline, that's going to keep me going. And I suppose I've never stopped drawing since.
Alongside this sort of discipline, are you heavily into BDSM as well? Because it seems like you all like to torture yourself.
Well, that's how I reward myself at the end of the day.
To be fair, that's what I said about like doing 2 pages a week on a webcomic. The deadline keeps you motivated to get something done. Otherwise, if he's like, I'll just do a comic and I'll do a bit of drawing today. I'll do a bit more tomorrow.
Pressure makes diamonds.
Hey, nice one.
Yeah, good phrase. What was the question, Dan? I don't think we got to the question from her yet, have we?
Well, it's essentially Sarah was saying about how she's a sole creator, and she was asking for any tips or tricks on being a sole creator, essentially about like keeping herself motivated. I mean, she's got a couple here that she's
Well, should we tackle the how do you keep yourself motivated? Is that, I mean, that's...
Yeah. She said, how do you keep yourself motivated when you have no pressure from other team members?
Pure, unadulterated spite.
Self-loathing.
I'm not really sure. I suppose comics have always been a part of my life. And like the idea of not drawing, not making the stories that I've got stuck in my head would just drive me crazy. So just the not wanting to let any of my readers down, if I have any.
One of me, dude.
If you got, because you and Dan, I suppose, are the two who are sort of pumping out on the web. If you don't put something out, do you get emails? The
comic, that is.
Yeah, the comic. If you don't, do you get emails? Do you get people saying, "Oh, where's the new?" Because certainly when I put stuff out on Kickstarter and it's been like a week later than people expected, I'll get, "Have I missed the email?" Yeah, all right. That sort of thing.
No, like if I miss like an update or two, there's never really much like reach out. I used to, I think it was last year and the year before, I was doing like a one panel a day, I was calling it. So like an Instagram square as a comic strip.
Yeah.
So I did one every day for a year, just to sort of like do some side characters. And if I ever missed like one or two of them, like folk would start reaching out pretty quick. But with it being a daily thing, there seemed to be a lot more engagement.
Okay.
Like Silverback's one page a week. So if somebody misses it 1 week, they'll just come back next week and hopefully there'll be 2 pages or at least another page.
Yeah.
Because usually webcomics, they'll read a load and then you'll have a back catalogue of like 5 or 6 pages and you blast through them.
But for the creator, it's sort of like, I mean, readers are like me, like you say, well, I'll save a bit and then I'll read some and then I'll save it for a couple of months. But the creator has to keep going, don't they? You can't create for any particular reading type of webcomic, can you? It's sort of like the readership is so amorphous, isn't it? It's sort of you could have the day and date readers, and also the people that save up. So it's like
this podcast, isn't it? Similar, yeah.
I think you just have to make it for like strictly yourself.
Yeah.
Try not to worry too much about your audience, and if you're consistently making it, if you're sticking to it, the readership will come and stick with you.
Yeah, that's fair. It used to really cut me up if I missed an update, but now I'm a bit more sort of blasé about it. So I'd rather have the page looking decent than put out something shite.
Yeah.
Because I put out a shite page and then had to go back and redo elements.
Yeah.
I still get the anxiety if I don't get my page finished on time.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, man, because I mean, I even in the smallest version, I write a weekly column, and if I haven't got it out by sort of midday that day, I'm like, oh god, this is tying me up in knots, and it shouldn't be because
is that because though with these sort of formats, it's because of the repetition and the schedule that we then build for ourselves. So if you did a couple of pages, then you missed a page, you probably, I would hypothesize that you wouldn't care as much as if you've been doing this for a couple of years and then you're going to miss a couple of weeks because you've gotten into that rhythm in your brain of always posting something, haven't you?
It's like the psychology of it all, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I mean, my question about this is, and it's about any sort of project for any sort of sole creator, because let's say there's a lot of you got if you're the one man band, you're writing the script, you're drawing the script, you're lettering it, colouring it if you're that sort of mad person as well. If you're doing the whole thing, you're doing the covers and doing everything else. But it's quite a lot of work. Any project, just doing one issue is a lot of work, and it's the level of enthusiasm and passion that goes into it. How do you keep that enthusiasm going in your own work? It sounds like
consciously as well. The energy's on the page sometimes. It's almost like the enthusiasm you've got as a creator, and you want to really kick ass on that page. You can feel that on a page, can't you, when you read it?
Yeah. So are you creating? When you're creating your own project, are you creating something that's going to be exciting for you to then draw and complete and stuff like that?
For the most part, yeah. Like I really enjoy drawing like big superhero battles and all that. It's very tedious when you've got to draw like 17 pages of people sitting around in a room having a cup of coffee talking about.
like DC Comics, you mean?
But
it's on with the last.
You just kind of have to trust the process and roll with it.
Yeah. In the last Vanguard one, all of my last issue was talking. There was no real, a little bit of fighting at the end. But
how do you make that? I mean, obviously, if you're writing a script, and that's not to say that these issues can't be, you can get some really tense, lovely world building, lore, and everything else in it in a issue that's all dialogue. You can still do loads with it.
Yeah.
But how do then? I mean, because both of you guys have got really kinetic comics. It's superhero action out the wazoo. How do you then keep a dialogue page exciting and interesting?
When it's a single page being posted, it's a lot different, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose the flow of the story works a lot different, especially if it's on a weekly basis. Because one page of dialogue and then waiting another week to see how a character responds to you, you really need to keep people hooked, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if I do that. I just kind of have my script and roll with it and hope that people come back.
So you have a long eye with the script, do you?
I'm very loose with scripting. I've got a sort of skeleton of the idea of where I want the story to end, and I just kind of let the story lead me places as I'm writing. I almost write week to week. So sometimes I'm dead focused. You just laser focused to the point that I'm on a script that I've had written for the last 5 years, and then other times my brain just goes boop.
I think we can overplan, can't we? I think people have these massive Excel sheets of we've got this, hit this point by page 35, and it's not like that. Especially when you're doing a page a week, it
keeps a bit of energy in it as well when you're it's not all locked in. And there's a little bit of play with it.
Because spontaneity for it. You get excited. Part of the motivation, I suppose, is when you have an idea all of a sudden in the middle of your story, and now you've got a whole new tangent to follow.
Yeah, because if there's if it's an ongoing story as well, I think it's different for one and dones, because we create these single pieces, don't we, that we know, and we've just got to execute that issue, those couple of issues. We're doing them beginning, middle, and end. But when you're doing a longer arc, and certainly the epic task of a small press and indie ongoing, even if it's a webcomic, that's a massive undertaking. I think if everything's too concrete, you are missing out on the gems that you will discover along the way. Because if you're so locked into a script and all of a sudden you're drawing a page where all of a sudden you like a supporting character more than you thought, do you know what I mean? If they're not in that if they're not in that locked down script, does that mean you're just going to lose them? Whereas if you're laying the track as the train's going, there's more option to be
you're more in it as well when you're laying the track like that.
Yeah.
You've got that saucy fox lady from Silverback. Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be using her in Silverback specifically, because I kind of wrote her as kind of a porno character.
All right, here we go. Right, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
There's always a point in the interview where it gets good.
Yeah, we hit that point.
Well, I always remember Tijuana Bibles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like all these little sex comics. I always thought it would be a fun aside to do one, because
we've done a couple, man. We do that.
Yeah.
Tribute. Yeah, I love it. They're really fun to write as well. Yeah.
Well, it's an odd thing about anatomy drawing that I'd never done before. Because again, you draw people punching each other through buildings, cool. You draw people sitting in a cafe, fine. Never really drawn people getting involved in a 12-person bondage gangbang. Yeah.
So,
we'll never draw one anyway, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't think I could draw that kind of thing myself, but
yeah, there's too much PTSD from the last one, Dan. Yeah.
I'll be your next comic.
Right, we've got another question from Sarah. What tools are a good investment for a sole creator? Are there particular bits of software or kit that helps?
I think this is a question.
Like a planning thing or something as well.
Very much, I think, down to the way you want to create your artist. How you want to create it. Because certainly, the digital stuff. The iPads, the Procreates, the the name's escaping me. What's the other drawing program?
Wacom.
Yeah, and Clip Art Studio, things like that. That sort of stuff. They're all. They can change the game. I think they have changed the game in terms of webcomics. This is just me. Correct me if I'm wrong, chaps. But there's sole creators out there. Maybe you paint. Maybe you're doing a different kind of medium. So therefore, these digital tools. I mean, I think you certainly need some to put it all together, though, don't we? I think. What?
I'd more think of that as a way of kind of like getting around to workflow. And that kind of sort of process can go from not only making comics but virtually everything you do in your life. What's the most efficient use of your time in getting from one place to the next? You know what I mean? What's the easiest way of me drawing this comic, getting it all together and out the door? And essentially, it's just hacking that down to find the most efficient, enjoyable way that you like to do it.
Yeah, you've got to corner your own process and not worry about how everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
Find the thing that works for you and roll with it.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a bit about your process?
Oh, well, I've got a Mobile Studio Pro from Cintiq. Not from Cintiq, sorry, from Wacom.
Yeah.
And I use Clip Studio Paint. And it's a brilliant little bit of kit. It's about 13 inches and I can carry it everywhere I go. So if I'm popping down a pub to meet my pals, I can sit and draw some comics. If I'm at my work as I am now and I get some downtime, I can sit and draw some comics. It's just the ease of access for it, I guess, that helps me. Before this, when I was doing my previously mentioned comic, Dillon in Richmond, I was just doing it on like a sketch pad.
Yeah.
I would just kind of do it old school, like pencils, inks, take photographs, or like use my digital scanner to scan it in and then assemble it all in a very, very old version of Photoshop that I completely legally purchased.
The snide copy of Photoshop 5.5 that everyone seemed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have their own sort of process.
Yeah.
And
so you've gone completely digital now. No pen and ink.
Oh, I still draw with pen and ink, but it's like the weird artist thing where, good, I've finally finished my drawing, so I'm going to take a break and draw something else.
Okay, yeah.
That does factor into one of Sarah's other questions when she said, what are some good time-saving tips for people who have to manage their creative time carefully? I think that what you did that I'd echo is trying to work in kind of like down times and dead times where you can work in doing a bit of drawing or writing or
reading,
or reading, rather than it's more of a temptation nowadays to pick up the phone and then look at whatever. Hardcore pornography, Instagram.
Why was that the order?
On my phone.
Why is it hardcore?
When I'm looking at my phone, I can sit and draw on the phone.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. So, but like bringing around just a pad of paper, a sketchbook, a digital drawing implement, if you can stretch to that. And when I've got 15 minutes, I could quickly sketch something out or do something.
Yeah, the ideas that come to you when you write or sketch. Sorry, man, go on. Pardon me.
Oh, no, I'm just saying if you're working digitally nowadays, you've also got access to a lot of like new resources, like 3D modeling and stuff you can use for like, filling your backgrounds. You have to watch in case it makes you lazy. Like sometimes when I look back at some of my old pages, I'm just like, you lazy little dick.
But that brings to mind something that I'm thinking of, that like everything's a learning, isn't it? We're always evolving as a creator, no matter who you are. So the way that you start, I think the way you start any project, you are a different person than you are at the end of it, because you've learned a certain amount, no matter how long it is.
Oh yeah.
So
ground all that joy out of your life.
When you decide to start Silverback, though, I mean, I know you said you were like more traditional to begin with, but then when you started Silverback, was that always digital, or was that, did you always think, right, I'm going to start this with Clip Studio, from day one, and then
the designs might have been, sketchbook maybe?
Yeah.
Well, Silverback's been a character that's been in my brain since I was 14. And
Nice.
the only reason he wasn't my first comic book is I had that little like mental trip up point where I was like I don't think I'm good enough to do the character justice.
Yeah.
And I had to sort of get over that and just accept, well, if it's crap to start with, it doesn't matter. Like,
You never start it, yeah.
Yeah, you'll grow into it. Once I had the better drawing habits from Dillon and Richmond, I'd already moved. I started that traditionally and moved it into digital. And once I was into digital, it was just like far more convenient. I could just put the whole tablet into my bag, walk about everywhere, work on comics everywhere I go. And yeah, so Silverback was always. It would have happened regardless. I would have worked on it with like sticks if I had to.
But you wanted to get. In fact, it's into another one of Sarah's questions, actually. It says, is it worth taking on small projects as part of a team to get experience before deciding to go solo? Essentially, what you did there, you kind of did a trial run, trying to get your work process and skills up to the point which you were happy to do, take a run at Silverback.
I couldn't recommend doing the sort of 1 a day thing.
Okay.
More to any other artist, especially folk that are struggling with just putting any work into their workflow. If you can just set aside enough time to do one finished drawing a day, and just it doesn't have to be big. Just like I got this little sketchbook off Amazon, and I think the pages were separated into little like 4 by 2 inch blocks.
Okay.
And I would just do a drawing in that daily with like pencil, ink, watercolor, whatever I was doing, and then moved on to doing like a 1 a day digitally. And it's good for just developing the habit.
Yeah.
It's sometimes the thought of getting started is the hardest part.
Agree. Yeah, the blank piece of paper.
Have you moved it into a physical medium yet? Have you? Excuse me for asking. I'm not sure.
I have got print copies of Silverback, but I was never really been all that happy with them. I recently redesigned the covers and redid a lot of the stuff. Currently working with a company to try and put it out, but I constantly forget to do anything that might actually make me money.
There's only another thing that there's only so many hours in the day. Like you got to be the creator, the kind of the multimedia person, the online person. It's rough.
I am terrible with the sort of idea of like having to engage with people. Like I like just sitting doing my comic.
I mean, there is a certain element of that, isn't it? Like if you're a sole creator, there's probably reasons you want to create something for yourself. You're on your own. I mean, making comics can be a very insular, introverted thing anyway. So when there's no team and it's just you, it is literally just you, isn't it? So
working with a team, like go, Richard.
Sorry, you go.
Go for it.
Just even silly things like working on your advertising.
Yeah.
Like I do the bare minimum of advertising. Like I'll put stuff on Facebook, Instagram, and there's like Comic Ads Network, I think.
Yeah.
That I do the occasional bit of like paid advertising, but it's like pennies. And I don't know if any of them works.
I always think there's this big divide between people, who seem like the people I sort of move towards, who it's a bit uncomfortable bigging yourself up constantly.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who are just shamelessly bigging themselves up constantly. Yeah. And I do think there's a balance between some of the work by those people has to be bigged up because it's not often that good. While some of the quieter people who are just ploughing away doing comics are almost like the more interesting styles I find sometimes. Because what you say there, you said it earlier, is I'm doing it for myself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I see similar to what you're saying. There's people putting out like their comic book universes on the likes of Instagram, but it's all just like singular shots of like characters standing against no background. There's no actual comic. There's just the concept there, which is cool. Everyone's starting somewhere and everyone's at different places in their journey. But they're super enthusiastic about their characters, and I can't imagine the last time I actually spoke to anyone about
We're British and cynical, aren't we, as well? I think part of it.
The amount of times, I mean, you reminded me there, Rich, that that I see an artist going, "Oh, here's a drawing of my OC, that I love. I'm evolving this character." And whenever I see these, I'm like, "That looks great. I want to read more of it. Where is it?" Is it just one-off pictures? Where's the story? I want to. Your character design is brilliant. It's worked. I want to know more about this character.
It's almost not the time to do it, because I feel like people who are putting that single image out live off the fact that somebody's going to go, I love that.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's what they're after, rather than just making a comic sometimes.
Yeah. It's two different kind of creators, and it's kind of
the
same when they post an image. I'm going to make comics and films and games. And okay, of course you are. All right.
So before we let
everyone is at a different place in their creative journey, and they sort of need the space to just be obsessed with their little almost Batman for a while before they move on to their
I like that, man. They need the space to be obsessed. That's the best phrase.
Yeah.
We do need that. You need that space to be obsessed with what you're doing before you show it to the world.
Yeah,
you need the love for that character before you're even going to start trying to tell that story.
And the development of it. Yeah.
I think that's
definitely.
I think that's interesting. That's an interesting subject there. Before we let you go, Rich, and we tell everyone where to find Silverback and stuff. Here's the question we're going to ask you. Okay, you're a sole creator. You're a veteran sole creator. That more
so much
people
for the veteran.
That more people need to know about. So get knowledge. But what would your advice be for a creator who maybe it's their second project, maybe it's their first project, before they even start on this comic that they've wanted to make for years? What advice would you give them?
Number one, I would say, regardless of what project you're starting, be consistent and realistic with yourself about what you're going to be able to do. If you can only do a page a week, only do a page a week. Don't try and push yourself to do more. Never push yourself to the point you're going to burn out. If you can only do 1 page a month, it's still better to have 12 pages at the end of your year than no pages at all, because you are feared to get started. I think that would probably be
think that's
man, just get on with it, man.
Simple works.
There's a quote that I can never remember who said it, but it's always stuck in my head. It is nothing will make you feel better except doing the work.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
Yeah, getting on with it.
Your story will always stay in your head unless you just put it down on
You'll
paper.
fret about it until you do it. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. God, such wisdom. We've got to have him back on the show. Normally it's just us talking absolute bollocks. But Rich, we love your comic, but where can the people go to find you and your comic and your creations, etc.?
Well, anyone that wants to read the comic, you can find it at silverbackcomic.com. You can find me on Instagram at Fabled Reptilian, and on DeviantArt at Silverback1.
Hey, DeviantArt, cool.
DeviantArt, that's something I haven't heard for a while.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Rich, and everyone.
Cheers, Rich.
Go and check out the comic because it's awesome.
Thank you guys so much for having me, and I better run. Work's a calling.
So, thank you to Rich for joining us, and
hopefully have him back on for a bit longer.
Totally, because it's a creator that has just been making this comic for years, and I know. I mean, having looked at the book, and Dan put us onto it. There's so much. Our readers just get a kick out of it. It's just so much.
Yeah, it's great. Great superhero stuff.
When I saw the panel that is the the homage to someone jumping out of the ship, the classic sort of Liefeldian sort of jumping out of I thought, I like this. I like that. But also
lovely line and good use of colour in his comic. I've got to tell you. Yeah.
And obviously was dropping wisdom on us. So it was awesome. But
he sort of dropped wisdom and left.
Yeah,
he was just like bang, and he's off. I like that.
Leave him hungry for more.
Yeah. His mic just hit the floor as he left because he dropped it. But it did. One of the things he brought up, which I thought was interesting, that talk of creating a character and just putting it out there so you can develop it and stuff. It made me think about, when we've sort of discussed, or we've openly discussed, the Batman rip-offs, the this, that, and the other that we've seen from small press and indie creators like world over. As soon as and we've been harsh on some of them because normally it's a little bit, it's the same photocopy of the same story over and over again. Yeah. But is there anything to say that? I mean, this could be someone's first project. So I know when I was creating, just drawing my own comics when I was 15, 16 years old. When I came back to them, I realised that I had essentially photocopied all the fucking comics I was reading at the time. Do you know what I mean? Because I was creating what I knew, what I liked at that time. So is there something to be said that these are people who are just putting it out there and developing? The only difference is, because of the internet, we're seeing that now. So everyone's more critical of it, you know. Because surely we all created those X-Men. We all created those Batman. Yeah. The only difference is we weren't posting it as a webcomic on the internet, or we weren't posting it on whatever art.
That's the whole big thing, isn't it? Is it's showing it to others, and also beyond that, getting people to pay for it.
Yeah,
you know, which is the whole difference from us, because we didn't have freaking Instagram when we were kids, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's a really weird.
It's when money comes into it, it gets a little bit. You know.
Massively. Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's hard because I've kind of spoken to some comic creators and like been quite real with them and said like, you should be publishing this as a webcomic for people to see and read and see if they like it, because asking money for it, people will not pay for this, because there's comics out there online that are free that are absolutely fucking amazing. And not to be nasty, you're not up to their level. Yeah. So why should they pay for yours over, like, say, Rising Sands?
God,
which is like, is fucking unreal.
Yeah, what was that? That 1,000. What was the awesome fantasy one, Dan, that you've mentioned several times? What's it? Oh,
we got Scurry.
1,000 Fists, or what was that?
10,000
Blows. Is that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and there's always absolutely astounding web creators, aren't there? Yeah,
so kind of to be asking money for it is you're gonna have to go somewhere. You have to justify that.
And people might naturally say, "Oh yeah, but those books have got thousands of followers, so they've got millions of followers, or whatever." Those creators probably
started at zero.
They started without anything. Do you know what I mean? You know, I don't want to. I'm going to take my cynical hat off for this conversation, and just think, there's a lot of these creators that naturally are successful books now. They didn't expect the success. I hope that they were exactly the same as Silverback.
I think in the earlier years they didn't, did they?
Yeah.
Now people do it thinking they're going to be breaking and get a cartoon deal and stuff like that.
It's even harder
then.
Yeah, it's harder and harder, as we all know, year after year. But it's kind of like a wine when you say, well, they've got all this stuff and all, but so what? They haven't you done. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. There's a certain like being a sole creator as well. If you're creating, and I know we've been talking a lot about webcomics on this particular subject. I think webcomics are more public, aren't they? They are more visual. I mean, because like we have to go to a convention to find a lot of the indie books, unless they're like sent around for reviews and stuff. That's one of their issues with a lot of like.
Some books now are not even a digital copy.
No.
With a lot of zines and stuff like that, there's no digital copy of some of the stuff that Matt Simmons is making.
Yeah. Which is
but you can put webcomics on global comics.
Yeah.
Like with Steamroller Man.
Yeah.
Well, I think your one from last week was a webcomic, wasn't it, Vince? That sort of weirdly poetic one.
That's a strange one.
Yeah. But the thing about like these sort of webcomics, because they're so public, everyone can see you develop or see you fail or see you try it. It's a very public forum for making comics, isn't it? Do you think that makes it more... I mean, people probably don't think about it when they make a webcomic, but do you think that makes it more of a nerve-wracking comic? Because I think certainly when we're making a print book, even if you're printing it yourself and stapling it yourself, you've just got in your mind, well, hopefully 20 people see this book. Do you know what I mean? There's not the pressure of the outside world.
Yeah, I've never felt it because I've never had to do it. And even when I'm just the writer on something, or even the writer publisher, it never affects me.
Yeah.
Well, can we try an experiment? Right, because I'm sort of conscious that I'm the one here who doesn't do it. So I'm going to ask you two a question. You ready?
Okay. Sure, okay.
For this, you might need a pen and paper. Have you got a pen and paper there?
I should do.
You got a pen? Yeah, look, good. Here's a flashback to episode 1.
Took that a million times.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question. Big shout out to Peter Bogosian for this, by the way. I'm going to ask you a question, and you've got 5 options as a reply, and I want you to write it down before we talk about it. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So your options are: agree or strongly agree, disagree or strongly disagree, or I'll give you also a neutral. Does that make sense? There's those 5 options.
Oh, right. Okay.
They're almost like a spread.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got to choose one of them, and I want you to write it down, or if you've written down already, circle it with your answer and show us it.
So it's basically strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Play along at home, folks.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, and we'll see how we go with this, because it's an interesting one, because I like to think maybe you'll change your mind a little bit.
Okay.
And we're going to see where it's gone to afterwards. So the first question is, and I'm going to read you the question. Don't say anything. I want you to write it down, and then I'm going to ask you what your answer is.
How many questions have you got?
Well, I've got a couple. We don't have to do that.
Okay.
First one. I make comics just for myself. Write down your answer. Don't say it. I make comics just for myself. And your options are agree or strongly agree, disagree or strongly disagree, or neutral. Okay? So, have you written down your answers, guys?
Yeah.
We can have some thinking time. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because you can see from that question where I'm going next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Vince, what have you got for that one? So let's repeat the question. I'm making comics just for myself.
I put neutral.
Interesting. I shouldn't have given you neutral, should I? Yeah, that's an interesting one. Okay, what about you, Dan?
I will explain it in a sec.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
I put disagree.
Disagree. Okay, so you're both making comics, or you both have made comics that you sell.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's not completely true. It can be partly true, but it's not completely true. Why neutral, Vince?
Partly, the way I went middle of the road is because the basis of the book or the creation or whatever it is because I want to tell that story. I want to make that thing. You know, it is the creation of it should be all. Oh, I want to put this thing. I want to create this and put it out in the world. But because I want to put it out in the world and I want other people to enjoy it, I can't say, well, this is just all mine, because it's not. Because I want to create it, enjoy creating it, and then when I show it to people and just go, look at this thing I made, I hope you like it. That
does it come in? Probing what you said there, and jump in, Dan, if you want. But when you're saying that, is there a point in the creation of it, even at the inception, where all you're thinking is, I want to make a comic I want to make a comic about this? You're not thinking. Do you think from dot one? Do you think about showing it to other people?
Yeah, I think.
So your intention from the moment of inception.
I want to draw a picture, and I want other people to look at that picture. If there's lots of stuff. I mean, you know, the sketchbooks that I got pages of stuff that people haven't seen and I haven't shown to people. But there's certain projects that I think, well, with the Red Mask issue 0. When I created that all way back in the day, that was me. Just fucking make it, man, or you'll never make it. You'll never make a comic book. So make that issue 0, this origin issue, where, you know, totally the imperfections were there. I was just fucking doing it. And once I had the thing, I was like, oh, I think I could do something with this. And then, Red Mask issue 1.
So when you're talking about Red Mask
thing.
issue 0, yeah, I get that. But when you're talking about writing Red Mask issue 0, if we just isolate that single thing in time, would that, just thinking about that one thing, would that move you over to agree a little bit?
Just that one particular thing. Possibly. I think it's all about intentions as well, isn't it?
Yeah, massively.
Because the intention of the issue 1 was to prove to myself that I can make a comic book beginning, middle, and end. Do you know what I mean? Whatever it was. If it went nowhere, it didn't matter. It wasn't for money because I put it up for download. It never got printed. It was just one of those, I've made this, download it. You know, you can do all the marketing afterwards or whatever. But it was just, once I did it, it was like, wow, I actually made this. I think I could do something with it. You know?
So in the sort of the cycle of Vince Hunt's comic creating career, currently you're standing in the middle of the stepping stone that is neutral. But with that little moment that started you off, it might move you slightly to agree. Do you think? Not now. Okay.
I think with the first thing I ever did, I'm more in the agree. I've made it only for myself.
Do you think that's how people? What about you, Dan? Because I know you said agree. Do you think that's how?
No,
people
I said
start?
disagree.
Disagree. Right. Interesting. Okay. Do you think then? Let me ask you this question then. Do you think that most people start off agreeing with that statement, and then they move onwards? Because I know you're in a different position now, but when you start thinking, you might be 12, you might be 5, thinking, I'm going to draw a comic.
Yeah. I think, and Dan, I'm going to let you have the floor in a second.
Yeah.
I think that particular question that you said there, Tony, I think with these young kids, I'm just going to do this for myself. It's absolutely right. I think the majority of modern creators, if you're setting out to create a comic now, they can't say agree because they want someone to see it.
Okay.
I think a lot of people, the majority of people, they want other people. They
would disagree, or even strongly.
Or
disagree.
They should. Yeah. But I think they would say agree or strongly agree, and they don't realise they're incorrect.
Okay,
does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah. That's almost like an ideal. Then you're saying.
Yeah.
So Dan, you said disagree. What? Why did you say that?
Because I've always seen the comics and the kind of comics medium as me being able to tell stories. So I've always had the person who's reading it and what they're getting out of it has always been in my head. Like, I'm telling a story here and I want to take you on the highs and lows of it. So always in my mind is like, how's this going to be received by the person reading it?
Are you thinking about how it's going to be received, or
the story? Not like, will people like this or people not? But like, if I'm going to tell a particular story, I want that story to work, and there's a beginning, middle, and end, and the reader feels happy with what I've given them.
So when you start something, Dan, this is a fascinating question. I love this, Tony. So when you start this, Dan, like, for instance, let's take Viper. Right, you're writing for an audience. Who is the audience you've got in your head? Is it you? Without realizing it, are you creating?
Is it us?
Yeah.
It's the putting the trappings in, the stuff that I like, and I know there's an audience that would appreciate this story and what I'm putting out.
There's a level of, you are creating it for another audience, but at the same time you're absolutely creating the book that you want to read. So we're kind of doing both, aren't we? In
a way. I mean, like, I would find it hard to put a book out that I have no interest in the subject matter, and I'm not got any kind of
which moves you a bit towards making it for yourself, isn't it?
Well, no, because I wouldn't make a comic for myself and then just put it on the side, and not show it to anyone. It would be to be read.
But in the grounds of making a comic that is something that you enjoy doing, it's edging a bit towards that. Do you think? I'm not saying you're solidly in the agree camp, but there is an element of.
There's definitely elements of like. You got to be kind of like doing something for yourself while making the story for someone else. Like, also the fact, like, if I was telling a story that I had no kind of, say I was telling the story about being on a deep sea submarine and what life's like, I've never had that, so it'd be disingenuous for me to tell that kind of story. Do you know what I mean? So I couldn't say. It's a tough one. I can see where you went neutral, Vince. I kind of went disagreeing as much that. It's always been about how it's going to be received by someone else, and not kind of like a narcissistic thing of like how I want to be thought of. Do you know what I mean? That's a bit telling me saying that, but it's more about like the land in the story and getting people like excited or giving them chills or whatever. I
mean, we want people in. If you're putting a project out in the world, you want to provoke some kind of reaction. Most of the time it is we want people to enjoy it. There are other people who just want to, provoke a reaction, just end of. But how do you think this question differs? And Tony, you're in on this one as well. Like, when it's work for hire.
Well, now we're straying into the next question.
Okay. Interesting.
Right.
Would you have an answer for that first one yourself, T?
I totally agree.
Okay.
I want to make comics just myself. I'm literally not bothered if anyone else reads it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But with that in mind,
I come from a comfortable financial situation. So
which is obviously a factor. But with that in mind, before we move on to the next one,
yeah.
Then why do you put them out?
Pressure of working with other people, because I do work with other people all the time, and I know that they need to get their comics out there.
Yeah.
If I was able to draw, I suppose the older you get, and we've experienced this as we've travelled through this podcast, the older you get, the less worried you are about what people think about you, and the less worried you are what people think about your comics. And the fact that I've done it, and I'm content with this comic that I've drawn myself, and I've done the odd 4-pager just for myself, that's enough for me.
Okay.
Because I work with Falpy, and I love the dude. He's my mate, and I think he's a genuine and real talent. I want them to go out there for other people. But when I do projects that are much more personal, and for example, there's the third one on the way, but the more sort of personal interview ones that I do, I'm not fussed. The fact I've got this comic, I'm content with it.
But with that in mind, you create those projects, and in a wonderfully positive way, these projects usually money goes to charity or money goes to a good cause.
Yeah, that's a big changing factor, isn't it?
So you have put a certain thing on it, haven't you? By instead, so it's. I mean, you could make these projects and it could just sit there, but by putting that good cause and getting the word out about things that people need to talk about, you've then made it something that needs to be out, needs to have an audience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rightfully so. If it's
that's a big changing factor, isn't it? Yeah, you're right. And that.
So
we've just raised more money this week, haven't we? Through some odd DUI sales, but yeah, it's interesting, man. It really is a thinker, that one, isn't it?
So would you
I
say
actually find the ideal
ways,
is that I want to just do it for myself, but other factors play.
So would you say? I know you're currently in the strongly agree camp, but because of the way you work with these people, with Falpy, Forpy,
it moves me.
Cumber, and it moves you down a little bit.
It does move me across the scale a little bit.
Yeah. And I think we're all moving.
Yeah, that's the point of this conversation. I love this because we'll probably almost find out that we're standing either between two posts or we've moved a post over.
And I think every creator thinks they're somewhere, and it will move when they really think about it.
Yeah, cool. Interesting.
Nice.
Let's do one more.
Yeah.
This, I think, thing is, I had about 8 questions, but we covered about 4 of them in that answer. So this is almost on a different thing, a little bit of different thing. Don't forget, we've got the scale again from strongly disagree all the way across to strongly agree.
Yeah.
I want to get paid for making comics full time. Don't answer, write it down. What do you think? I want to get paid for making comics full time. There's a lot of factors at play in that. It's not a simple answer. We don't live in an ideal world. Let's not just do it as an idealized answer.
Okay.
Let's do it as a practical, pragmatic, man of the world, person of the world answer. The question being, I want to get paid for making comics full time. Let's go to you first, Dan, for that one.
When you added that caveat, it changed my answer completely, because they're like, if I could get a full-time job just doing comics and all la-di-da, that's fine. Looking at the landscape of it now, absolutely disagree. No, I don't.
Okay.
Don't want to. I don't think I really ever have. It's
so strongly disagree.
I'd say we were looking at strongly disagree. It's
okay.
To be fair, if someone said to me, "Here's like $50,000 a year, and you can draw. I want you to draw Marvel comics, or whatever." I can't say I wouldn't fucking be swayed by that, but generally, I have no interest in doing it.
Are you the sort of guy who, I think you are, but what do you in your own heart think? Are you the sort of guy who could keep to a deadline, work under a writer and an editor, work under a publisher, change things when asked and stuff like that? Could you work under the confines of that sort of dictate? Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
So you'll be fine with that?
I'm kind of more of I consider myself at times more of a commercial artist, and all my work in life I've kind of made artistic decisions, designs, and then someone who is higher up than me or paying the bill says, I want you to change that to a circle or make that purple. And it's like, well, that's what I'm going to do then.
See, man, because what your answer there tends to make me think you're more in the agree camp than the disagree.
What I would do it for comics. I just don't, for comics, I just don't want to do it. I feel like it would be a hobby and a passion and something I really enjoy doing, and make it into my living. I think it would kill it, corrupt it.
Because it's such a big love of yours, some people say that, don't they? Don't make your hobby your business. Yeah. Okay.
I've spoken to loads of people that have done similar stuff, and they invariably just like it just becomes your day job, and just it's not paying bills, and just becomes humdrum.
Yeah, it takes the magic out of it, maybe a little bit.
I'd agree. Okay. Yeah, I'd say so.
Vince?
Strongly disagree.
Wow, look at you two fucking motherfuckers.
But I think...
Why so, though? Why?
I think this is one of the questions that's... the first question was more idealistic.
Yeah.
The second question is more
practical.
It's more practical and introspective.
Okay.
Because for me, it makes you think, okay, like Dan said, there's the, would it kill the passion for it if you're doing it full time? And there's also when you look at your own work. I mean, I think if it was going to, something like that would be for me, it'd be more writing than drawing or anything like that. That's probably more where something like that could be accomplishable.
The writing's a whole different dynamic, isn't it? It's a whole different pressure on you. It's a whole different working technique. I mean, I've said this many times. I've written comic strips on the bus.
Yeah.
You can't draw like that. You're very much stuck in. Almost as a writer, you can be more social. You can be have more friends every night over and stuff like that.
That thing Pat Mills identified about the lead time. I didn't realize how fucking wise that was, and like he put his finger on something that. I didn't even realize was an issue, but like you don't just launch into the first issue if you're planning something big, because you've got to research a load of stuff. You've got to bring up these characters, what the kind of conflicts are, everything about it before you even start going at the script.
Yeah.
And you don't get paid for that, if you know what I mean. That's not. So as a writer, if you're doing it full time, you kind of you got that on the go.
And it shows in comics these days. People don't invest that time.
No.
Yeah. There's that. If it is a full-time job and you constantly have to churn stuff out, there's the pressures that go with that, naturally, if it's a full-time gig. And it's how you sort of handle that, or what the quality of work is. I mean, we've seen some amazing stuff that is created by people in their own time because they're afforded the luxury of their own time to do it, which is a strange way to look at it, but sometimes the hobbyists create the best comics. That's the way it is.
I mean, if you're being real now, if you're not... your comic you're working on isn't doing the numbers by issue 3, you'd be fucking shitting yourself because you're like, I'm going to have a job.
Yeah. So okay, let's just focus a little bit on Vince there, because I strongly disagree. What comic, what style of comic, what genre, how it's produced would make it something you would do full time? What conditions would there have to be for you to become a full time comic creator?
Oh, that is a...
I mean, let's ignore the financial. So we're saying 100k each a year you would get. So let's ignore the financial.
I tell you, this is going to sound probably a bit mad, considering we're talking about sole creators and very much an individual. This is our thing. But I'm about to explain it as well. I would probably say for this full-time thing, I take someone else's ball and run with it. Okay. Because if I'm doing my own thing, because immediately my brain thought, I create my own books. I get paid for it. I get all the, this, that, and the other. I do that. That wouldn't happen because I overanalyze it. It's one of those, if it's not perfect, it's not going out. And I do that so much that nothing gets done. Whereas the amount of times, I mean, you said on this show, fucking hell, just give me an X-Men book. Doing the old backseat driving. Whereas if it's like, okay, give me the reins of that for a bit and I'll go. I think it would be easier for me to step into that kind of thing, which is obviously there's been some wonderful people that have managed to do that. But for me personally, I would create less pressure for myself if it wasn't my own work. That sounds insane, but what I mean?
That's interesting. I mean, it's almost like, do you think you would worry if you were creating a book for a company? Would you worry too much about what people would think about stuff you've done? I mean, we can all be edgelords when we're creating our own comic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you were doing like a Wolverine comic and you'd written a thing where he's fucking loads of birds in it or something, well, would you worry about it? Would these things play on your mind too much and stifle your creativity? Is what I'm thinking.
Well, I think it'd be one of those, because obviously we're talking hypotheticals and theories.
Yeah.
It is one of those. I've got this story that I just want to tell. I'm going to tell it, and then just the general public will say what they're going to say because it's in the zeitgeist. Do you know what I mean?
That's the thing that I think some of the anguish for me about the sort of some of the modern comics. If someone's handed like the Wolverine comic, for me, that is like you're standing on the shoulders of giants. You've got such a weight and responsibility to carry on telling the stories of these characters, and then the reins seem to be given to people that don't give a shit, don't know anything about them, just do whatever. And you're like, man, we've all done it.
We've all done it. We've all had those sort of characters and books that think, I do, I've got an idea for that book. Everyone has had that sort of, I've got a Jubilee miniseries in my head that I'm thinking, fucking one fine day,
awesome.
That will never happen. But yeah, I think when I think about my stories as well, they're less, I don't think, on the epic scale. Mine are usually more, they're closer. Do you know what I mean? I'm less the X-Men in space trying to save the world, and more there's 3 X-Men trapped on a submarine with a monster. Do you know what I mean? And that's a miniseries. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think in those close proximity terms when it comes to storyline or character sort of things. But yeah, I think that's why I'm so. A lot of my so many comics don't get done because I overthink them to the point of, I'm almost working on them too much that I've ruined the paper that I've drawn it all on. Do you know what I mean? It's that I'm trying to rework it until it's
How would you try resolving that? Have you ever considered how would I work around that?
Grade A narcotics, probably.
They're the best.
But if you had like a moment of self introspection,
it is.
I've got this issue with me getting stuff out the door.
It is genuinely a creative problem that I have, like a major problem that leads to then more anxieties and stuff down the road. I've got sketchbooks and I've got stuff on the iPad for projects that started that the fire's there and then I've overthought it or I've over.
See, I think that Black was a good way of getting over that kind of thing because you're banging out a page a day and it's just boom, boom, boom.
I wasn't even doing that.
Quick.
Like Black is, and just to let people know, there is more of Black coming because I did loads and loads of pages.
You'd have been asking.
Yeah.
But that was obviously during lockdown. I was like, I'm just going to do just loads of art. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about the pacing. The way, I didn't think about comic book structure. I didn't think about anything else. I just thought I just got one page. Just keep telling a story without words. See what happens. You want to draw some monsters. You want to do this. Blah blah blah. That was a creative exercise that became a book in the end. But that was.
This is leading on to the next question, by the way.
Yeah, this was cool. We're good this week, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I think you're right, Dan. Like when I did that, that was something that I thought would be an interesting artistic project rather than a comic book project for myself during those crazy times. It was only later when I thought, I could collect this, that it became a
okay. That's interesting.
And I also created it also to be an Instagram comic. I think
didn't you collect it because we were doing Thought Bubble?
Yeah,
is that right? That was when it came out.
I just thought, I might actually have something for Thought Bubble.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right, let's move on. You was doing that for yourself. If we look at making comics, hey, go on in. Go on in.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we almost went full circle there, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's next one. Ready to write down the answer? Same answers. The question, the statement I'm making is, I don't feel the pressure to bring out a new comic. I don't feel pressure to bring out a new comic.
Fucking hell.
I don't feel pressure to bring out a new comic. Do you agree with that statement? Do you disagree with that statement?
I'm actually caught on the horns of that one. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't feel the pressure to bring out a new comic. Okay, whose turn is it, Vince?
Fuck.
Do you know what? I wrote it down, and then when it was just about my turn to talk, I thought, actually, I've just disagreed with myself there. Because I initially wrote strongly agree.
Okay.
But I'm already chipping away in my head.
Is that the rebel in your head? Is that the rebel there singing, fuck them? It's almost
less that, but something else. But let's get Dan's answer first.
Okay.
I'm an hour over this one over more than the other two. I'd probably say disagree. I don't feel the pressure too much. I think maybe in a couple of years ago.
No, I don't feel the pressure. You agree with it?
I don't feel the pressure.
Do you agree with that statement?
I don't feel the pressure. Okay. I agree with that.
Or strongly agree?
I disagree. I wouldn't say strongly agree.
Strong. So you just agree, yeah?
I agree. Yeah, I don't feel the pressure.
So when you're a bit late with bringing out another page of Vanguard, you don't feel that pressure?
A couple of years ago, it used to burn me up if I would work till late to get that page up on a Wednesday or a Friday. Now it's like if it slips, it slips.
So how far's slipped though? I mean, if it slips a month, do you feel pressure?
No, oh God, it wouldn't slip a month. It would slip.
What if it did? Would you feel pressure then?
Tony, you're killing me, man. Yeah, I would feel pressure. I would feel pressure. I would feel pressure. Yeah.
Okay.
I would feel pressure.
Vince, do you want to explain your answer?
When I wrote strongly agree, I wrote it because I purely thought I'm out of the game. I mean, I never was.
You're not out of the game.
but this thing is like I wrote it and then I started to think about it and slowly started.
Yeah.
But when I wrote it, it was very much one of those. I'm out of the game. Essentially, God, this is gonna sound depressing. If I didn't create another comic again, no one would care.
Fuck off. That's not true.
But
there's two people here who.
Yeah. But that's.
There's more than that. There's just two in the room. Yeah.
But then as I thought about it, and then I was thinking, oh well, obviously people want another black, and people used to ask for, people have asked for red mask.
People are always asking for red mask.
Yeah. So there's that chips.
I can hear Bunsey sending you a telegram.
Red mask.
So already I'm slipping down. Do you know what I mean? I already know that I'm going back. And
moving towards neutral a little.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I feel the pressure to bring out a new comic.
I think
I'm the biggest fuck everyone in the room.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But I think that's also we are the products of the rods that we create for our own backs. The reason that I did my answer and I've said the thing is that my productivity in terms of the comic book game and I'm doing all that has edged backwards. I certainly went more into reading and just in all of that jazz, and I wasn't creating so much.
You did move a little bit into design. I mean, you designed some covers for me and stuff.
Yeah. And I sort of stepped away from it a bit, and because of that, my brain is thinking a certain way. Dan is a webcomic creator. He's created an inbuilt clock for himself.
He's definitely got a clock in his stomach, hasn't he?
Yeah. And even
the alarm goes off 10 times, he's feeling a stomach ache.
But he's created something to ease that he's done issues. So after an issue, he has a break. But eventually, the timer gets turned again because as soon as he starts putting out a new issue, the run begins again.
Don't forget, this is also the man who drew a picture a day for a year.
Yeah, but I mean, let's all agree. Dan Butcher is a psychopath, and there's no one else. But Tony, you are since the show started, lifelong lover of comics. Had done some little bits. You were not as prolific as Dan.
No, I did comics.
Or me.
I did comics from about 95 through to about 2002.
Yeah,
and then I stopped.
So you hadn't done it for a while.
I just wrote reviews and some prose and stuff.
Yeah. And then you started creating stuff and tribute, and because of tribute, and because you've been so prolific, obviously with the collaborators you've got, you've got that, you've got the creation bug. You've given yourself this whole you need to do it now. I think.
I think I go through little periods where, and this has just happened, and we can talk about our thing, Dan, if you want. But I go through little phases. I mean, I'm massively busy. Genuinely, I'm more busy than I've ever been at the moment, work-wise. Yeah. And obviously, I've had a couple of operations recently and stuff like that. So the mojo gets beaten down a bit. But I get mostly inspired when someone like Cliff or Falpy or recently Dan has said, write something. And that's when the juices start flowing for me. So Dan said recently, do you want to write something? Do you want to do a 3-pager? Now, that's a challenge. I find saying do a horror story in 3 pages is not an easy fucking thing.
No, it's not.
And it's very much. And
because I did something similar with Dan as well.
I asked Vince and Tony to do some 3-4 pages script for Grim Scary Tales 2, which is we're working on it at the moment. So
yeah,
working
on it. Dan drew it in a week. Yeah, so
like
I wrote it on Monday morning.
He's an anomaly. Dan Butcher's an anomaly. I'm pretty certain
Dan's
he's
an
been
absolute liar.
Yeah.
You disagreed with that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he landed on this planet from another place and time. He was looked after by some people in the middle of nowhere, and he's powered by the sun.
He lives in the shed. But then, I sent Dan the script on Monday morning. I told you guys the story I had in my mind.
Yeah,
and I don't mind it gestating a bit because it works out the beats for a 3-page story sometimes when it gestates. And to be fair, the night before, so Dan sent me a message saying, "You're going to do this or not, you wanker." He didn't say that, but that's how it felt when it hit me. And that's
the subtext.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep because it was playing in my head. This story, I had this story, and I wanted the beats. So I got up and wrote it at like 5 a.m. on Monday morning. Dan sent it finished to me today. Dan's already drawn it.
That's how we done it.
That's how we do.
It's lettered, everything's done.
But there's another side to that coin, Tony, which is my side of it.
Right.
Because the idea was thrown about a little bit, and obviously, there was too many ideas in my head. I had nothing to show, and I didn't really communicate backwards and forwards with Dan about it too much. But I knew I wanted to write it. But finding that particular idea for these pages, it was like nothing was clicking. And as time went on, there was a certain pressure that I had built. Dan didn't pressure me at all. We didn't do anything like that. But I pressured myself because I was like, God, he needs this soon. I haven't done anything. I know I've got ideas, but I haven't done anything. What am I going to do? And it came to a point where I was like, I think I've got something, so I'm just going to fucking just give it a go.
You work it out on the page sometimes, don't you? You work it out as you're typing it, and you're visualising it, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. And I certainly with a short as well, I visualised the pace of it before I did the words. Do you know what I mean? There was that interesting sort of...
You've got to do that, man. You've got to know, because there's only so many panels on a page.
And
there's only so much space to tell something.
Me and Dan were talking about it. It's like, well, the words can change, but I think the tempo's kind of there, isn't it? It's that sort of like, well, this is what's going to happen, but the words...
Are we doing yours next week? Starting on yours
Jesus
next week.
Christ.
Have you not finished it yet?
He's a beast!
He
doesn't feel pressure, though. He doesn't feel pressure. He just gives it out to me.
Yeah.
I'm a submarine man. I was built to operate under intense pressure.
Yeah. Don't go and see the Titanic.
And he's also he's also filled with men.
I wasn't going to show each other. I wasn't going to show you each other's
and the occasional lady. And the occasional lady.
I wasn't going to show you each other's comics until they're both done and in the comic. So you can
that's beautiful.
Read the other ones.
And I will say that little project, Dan, was a little bit of a... It was the bait on the hook. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd been in a sort of, writing some stuff, but nothing was really clicking. But to have a sort of like, okay, do this.
Be made.
Yeah.
Great.
Which is just... So it was interesting... it was an interesting creative journey, I think, for both.
You're not going to show us. Have you shown your Chinese dad it? Yeah, or
he's not a big comics fan, so he's usually busy as well, like cooking and stuff. So I can't.
That is a callback about 350 episodes, where for some I accused Dad of having a Chinese for some reason, and we can't remember why. And one of our partners reminded us.
Chinese dad, and it's like I don't know what that's in regards to. It's just nuts.
I think it may have been a Viz conversation.
Yeah, but Tony, as always, what would you say about that question? Back to the question. So the question was,
I've turned away from the page now. Hang on, I got it here. I don't feel the pressure of bringing out a new comic. I do feel the pressure because I feel the pressure from other people.
So what level do you think
and I don't mean readers, I mean creators, artists mostly.
Pressure from them or pressure because you don't want to let them down by not doing one?
Yeah, that's the pressure I feel.
Second one,
or they're waiting for something from me.
Yeah,
that's the pressure I feel. If I could draw stuff, fuck the world. FTW. But because I've got other people I'm engaged with, it's like, I do feel it. Yeah.
Okay.
Agree rather than strongly agree, because at the end of the day, fuck everyone. Do you know what I mean?
These questions are brutal.
They are. That's
I've gotta
different.
say.
It's great. It's a great one for thinking about it.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Peter Bogosian, because I've nicked this off an idea of his. But
Mate, that's great. Honestly, great set of questions,
And
because
like, I hope
all over the place.
Yeah, we've got a lot of lovely creators that listen to this show. Obviously, hopefully you've been playing on and thought about it, because it's not something to make you judge yourself as creators. It just makes you think a bit more about. Oh, well, that's interesting.
I think we might have to carry on this subject next week, because we've got absolutely reams of questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're gonna look, the sole comics creator. Like I said at the start, we've talked an awful lot about collaboration and communication and all of these sort of things, and working as teams. But it's a different ball game, and certainly thanks to Rich, we were talking a lot about webcomic stuff, which, as we know, that goes beyond the book itself, doesn't it, Dan? Because you got to think about the website, you got to think about then the social, the interactions between networks.
There's also the
like
learning stuff. The learning.
Yeah.
I'm so old, my brain doesn't retain stuff. But just learning about how websites work, how you upload, how you draw it, how you.
It's like a million fucking things you've got to be a master of, and
even when I edit
really
NIA, it's like I've literally got a list of things I do because I keep forgetting how to do it.
yes,
It's like.
Yeah.
The amount of times I had to ring Vince and go, right, how do you edit this thing again? When I started off, it's like I'm terrible with technical stuff.
Yeah.
we get an email from like the Vanguard site saying this thing is at fault. Like, if you don't, you're open to being hacked. Fucking hell! Like, quickly log in and update that plugin. Yeah,
it's all those Pornhub access.
Yeah, just the old bots coming after me.
Yeah,
attacking the site.
You like a bot though, don't you?
No, I had an interaction with one this week, so they can.
Oh, you did
off.
you got a gaming bot, didn't you? Go after you. Yeah.
Bring it on.
Don't say
GAI rather than
Just reiterate that. I think we might have to. We have to push it off. Maybe we could get see if we can push around and get another sole creator. To come
I think there's a few sole creators that we know.
We know a few.
And so I think this week we won't delve into, like, obviously possibly having your project and then work. What do you do in terms of publishers, or if there's lots of different aspects when you're doing it on your own, and it can feel a very lonely is the wrong term for it, isn't it? But when you are just you. Perhaps you haven't got a comics community around you, or it's far away, or perhaps this stupid little show we do every week is your little insight into the comics community. If it is, we bloody love you, because you just want to make comics. So
it's not really like this.
No. It's not like this carnage. But Dan, in terms of, just to go back to one of Sarah's questions, in terms of the kit. There is no out-of-the-box comics creating kit, is there, I think, because we're all so individual, we're all so different. But do you think there's one or two particular things that you should have? I mean, for me, personally, I would maybe say, like, everyone's going to mention it in their comics creating at some point, I think Photoshop. Just something like that, because if you've got to deal with your artwork, if you've got to clean up scans, or if you've got to, perhaps you're working digitally, there is, or some sort of image tool.
Digital, yeah. There's, like, you got GIMP. There's a couple of free programs you can get for, as opposed to Photoshop, which is kind of like the higher end of it all.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, because Photoshop's obviously a lot of money. Those sort of things are a lot of money.
A lot of money.
But
it's not just a one-off, it's a sub.
No.
You have to keep fucking doing it. Yeah. As soon as you start doing that sub, you lose access to opening those files, which is a real pain in the arse.
What other alternatives are there then, Dan, for, like, creators who don't necessarily?
There's loads of free programs for doing digital stuff. Like, there's that GIMP. There's, I think it's Art Affinity. If you keep your eyes open for Clip Studio, sometimes they do like a ridiculous price to get that, sales, like really silly price.
Yeah, they do
on a sale on that.
The Adobe stuff doesn't really have sales or anything like that.
No,
really.
That's just set up to, because
it's a captured market.
It's subscription services as well, that sort of thing. So once they've got you in, because I've got the Adobe suite, and it's just,
you can get around a cheaper way of doing it is by registering yourself as like a limited company, and you get a reduced rate. But obviously,
also, if you're a student listening to this, you also, I mean, you probably know anyway if you're in the creative arts, but students, they get it cheaper as well, I think.
Yeah, you get like a learning package. But yeah, so the Adobe one's a tough one. It's going to be expensive.
Yeah, if you're
again, I've
got a uni email. I might give that a go.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. Like Rich said, like depends on how you kind of put your comic together. If you're just doing pens, paper, and a ruler, I mean, you could conceivably draw it all and then take it down to your local library and get it scanned in for free. Yeah, and sent into you and get it.
Scanners have come down recently. You've got more now that look like lamps. Have you seen those ones?
Yeah.
Rather than sort of flatbed one, and they're
the ones that, they sort of roll it over the page, don't they? It's like, it does look like a stick, doesn't it? It's like a stick.
Oh no, it's like it almost looks like a lamp, like a leaning lamp.
And
it scans. Have you seen those ones?
I
was looking because I was looking at scanning all my OA and putting it on CAF, and I was thinking I really need a decent scanner, and I don't want to spend like £1,000 on a flatbed scanner. And I saw these things. Oh, they look all right. I need to look into it a bit more, but if you look around, there are cheaper alternatives.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, these sort of things that we're talking about, it depends on the project that you want to do. There's a lot of like zine makers and stuff like that. Pen and ink on some A4, folded up or taken down the photocopier, get some photocopies of it, folded up. You've got your book. You are your
do that, man.
But
one thing I feel like there's a way to kind of a pressure to kind of make sure it's the professional level and you're using all the professional tools to make your comic doesn't have to be that.
No, it doesn't.
You know what I mean?
I got this through from Zach Carhill, and that's all I wanted to read.
Yeah,
like a little folded zine. It's great.
Yeah,
really good fun. Yeah,
you don't have to have the top end kit all the time to get the stuff done.
Because here's a little little secret for anyone. All those creators you like that are putting out these high end books, they didn't have all those tools to begin with.
No.
Big glue
somewhere.
They
scissors
learned, or they were just typing out documents and just seeing what.
Some of them had typewriters, like this old fucker here.
Yeah. So
I printed out comics at work and fucking used my big stapler to make ashcan.
Yeah.
I've literally written a script on a typewriter. I've done that with carbon between the two pieces of paper, so I'd have a copy of it. That's about home.
I think there's also, in terms of this question, there's also a variable to be said in terms of the thing that you've started. I mean, you could be really excited about creating with Copic markers or just anything. You love that medium. Who's to say that in 12 months you discover a new medium, all of a sudden you like working with paint? Do you know what I mean? It's always going to evolve, but use the tools you have to create the thing you love. I think and that if you've got an idea that just has to be out there, I usually find that it'll get out there some way. But
everyone apply themselves to those 3 questions this week on the Slack. I'd really like to see that.
Yeah,
if they just have a look through. So it's I don't feel the pressure to bring out a new comic. I'm making a comic just for myself. And what was the other one?
I want to get paid full time.
I want to get paid to make comics full time.
Yeah,
those 3 questions, and let's see whether you agree.
I wonder if we could set up a poll in the Slack and people could vote. And
I think there's a way of doing that. Yeah,
it must be. And then people can explain why they put what they did, because man, that's really tough. That was tough.
Yeah.
Great series of questions, Dave.
Yeah, and I think there's different aspects to being a sole creator that we can delve into. So be prepared over the next few weeks.
I've got questions here from Johnny O, Sarah Webb, Kieran, Matthew, Ian Matthews, and a couple on Twitter. So they're rolling over next time.
Because much like we had a comic creation series way back in the day that we'll do again at some point because it's an ever evolving thing. And certainly when you're a sole creator, there's lots of different aspects in terms of.
I mean, a lot of these will just go into general comic creation, because even though you're talking as like one person doing all the things. If they're talking about an art question, that's going to apply to the art. If they talk about a writing question, that's going to apply to.
And I think one of the ones that we're going to, I think, will have a lot of people's ears, because everyone wants to know. A lot of sole creators and a lot of people listening to this show. It's certainly about the marketing and getting your work out there. But
that PR thing.
Well, that PR thing. But that's something we don't want to just do it off the cuff. We might actually give you some proper information about that. So this isn't going to,
I wonder if that lady who's been speaking to us from Avery Hill might be up for coming on.
Oh.
Yeah, ask. Yeah,
she's got quite a bit of history.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got one surefire way. do a podcast for 10 years.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Do it for 10
That
years.
easy fucking way.
Yeah.
Surefire way to
Just do a podcast for 10 years for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Night
Always
terrors.
it's referred to,
Night
I think
terrors
it's
are real,
referred to-
people. Night
Yeah.
terrors are real.
I referred to it in my tax return as a thankless task. It's the header.
We're sitting here
Yeah.
pretty in ACP towers.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
Right, come on in.
Steel
in a
monolith.
very tax exempt country.
Tax my arse.
Oh,
Right.
I will.
Pickle penis my arse. Right. We're running massively longer.
Yeah, fuck me, yeah.
So, without
We ran this up.
yes, do we? Yes.
Yeah,
so
to be
stay
continued.
tuned. To be continued. I love it when it's to be continued. Do we have any shout outs, gents?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So sign up on Kickstarter for the new release from Millsverse, Shah Volume 1, written by Pat with art by his Vampire Knight collaborator, Olivier Ledroit. Medieval Witches Flung into the Future. Looks amazing. There's a new UK edition of Spinning from Tilly Walden from Avery Hill. Now funding on Kickstarter. Do a little bit of help. Listen, I know that Tilly is now the darling of the indie comics scene and Walking Dead as well. She's very prolific. You know, her artwork is on Athenium Art. You can buy original page and stuff, but she started at Avery Hill. They're the guys who gave her the chance. So if you haven't read Spinning, I'd suggest probably the best place to get it is Avery Hill. I know
I
they
agree.
previously put out a collection of her books as well. So go and have a look at that one.
I've read most of
and-
the Tilly stuff from Avery Hill
Yeah, that's why I've read it. Yeah, that's I think was where we started. Remember, we interviewed her and we had it, you know.
back in the days.
Yeah. September the 15th, Bridlington Spa, Bridlington Comic Con. Myself, Falpy, the Canon, and a few other people are going to be there. Pop along, and you can also meet a lady who's a Doctor Who. There's other people there. We'll come on to
Excellent.
that. That's going to be great fun. And Andy, small press tables are free for comic people. And he says, let's keep the comics in Comic Con, which
Nice
I'm
work, Andy.
really, really good of him. So there you go. They're my three.
Amazing. Dan, what have you got?
Something I'm failing to do. Falling Awake, a sci-fi horror graphic novel. Awakening from Christ's sleep on a hostile planet, John and a young girl must face a non-human threat. He must confront his past to survive. By our friend Joseph Oliveira. That smashed its target.
Well, they're publishing it. It's by another creator.
Afterlight Comics.
Afterlight.
Oh, it's by someone else, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Right, okay, I didn't know that.
He's
Okay.
is he a TV guy or something?
Yeah.
Feeling, yeah.
Oh, this
It
works.
looks great, man. Some of the pages they got there are absolutely golden. Can't wait to get stuck into that. Story and art by Jan Ditlev. I've heard that name before.
He's got a book on global comics.
Ah, that'd be why.
Yeah, yeah.
So go check that out. That's ace. We've got Space Boy and the Future King, issue 1. Young Arthur and his strange acquaintance, UFOs, dragons, and a 5th century Batman. That's going to be launching, I think, by the end of this week.
I think he's got like a countdown time.
He's
on
got a
Instagram,
countdown
hasn't he,
timer.
Rory? Yeah.
So nice work on that one. And yeah, that I think that's only like 3 or 4 days. So by the time you listen to this, it might be live on Kickstarter. So do go check that out. If you've got kids or know someone with kids who likes comics, they'll love that. Go back it.
Nice. And speaking of back, we're in the back end of the show.
Best place to be.
Yeah, my
So
favourite
far.
place.
Hanging out the back end of the show.
Dan.
I just brought the tone down there. That was really bad.
Disgraceful. So let's bring the tone back up. Time to recommend some comics. Tony, do you want to go? First?
I've got a feeling this is going to be the first of 2 recommends for Ghost Machine. Am I right in saying that?
Maybe.
I'm doing one of them, and I think you might be doing another one. Hopefully you are, because I've put the fucking T-shirt on for your one. Look.
Yeah.
God, I am engorged.
I recommended fucking Rook to a couple of people, and they've just come back saying it's the fucking business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're right.
Before you get stuck into it, Tony, because I know you're about to get stuck into this. Right. I will say, Ghost Machine are not paying us any money.
No,
But it's what they are doing.
Top
my
class,
money,
man.
is
Top
fucking
class.
Good comics. Just fucking
It's all
good comics.
I read the new Redcoat
Yeah.
today. Fucking great.
Yeah,
I also read the new, the one about the dog. I was worried.
Oh, Geiger.
Oh, yeah. No spoilers, but...
No spoilers. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about The Blizzard,
Right, okay.
which is part of the Tales of the Unnamed, which is part of the Ghost Machine story, because it's a lot of it is an interlocking universe. Ghost Machine in companion with Image Comics. This story is actually previously published in the Image anthology in issues 1 to 12.
Okay.
Written by Geoff Johns, art by Andrea Muti, Rob Lee, who does, I think, the letters for it all, actually, and Brian Cunningham is the editor. Begins with a quote from Jim George, who I looked up, and I think is a Christian theologian, life coach, writer guy, which I thought was a strange choice. So maybe I didn't find the right person. But God is gracious to always give a warning before he sends his judgment. It's a little precursor to the story. Because this comes from an anthology, you feel the breaks. You know, you can see, if you read the first few pages, there's a break where you see a monster on a hill and then you start again, so you can feel it. And I think I'm more in touch with that, as you two probably are, because we're used to that shorter 2000 AD UK weekly format. But it shouldn't break it up for you. It's not really that noticeable. It's about a man called Michael. He's been convicted for killing the man who murdered his son. He pulled a gun on him during the old perp walk. You know, when the Americans do this thing, don't they, where they try and get them in front of the cameras and do a perp walk, and he shot him in the head. I think there are some cases of that happening in the US, aren't they? I've seen a couple on, like, there's
the famous one where they brought the chap through the airport,
and he's by the phones, isn't he?
He's by the phones, yeah, and he abused his son, and he kills him. I think he got off of it, like they didn't.
Oh, did he?
As far as I'm aware, yeah. Well,
this dude I think he gets a bit of diminished responsibility. He gets a manslaughter charge, but still gets prison time for it. He has his failings, he has his demons, he has his regrets, but he's a normal guy, and he's divorced. And I think he feels that guilt because he wasn't always with his son. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And he finds himself on the prison transport, which is a bus travelling through the country in heavy snow. Again, I think I said this last week, I love a comic with heavy weather. I don't know, there's something about
when
rain or snow.
Heavy snow or heavy rain, I'm all about that.
And as he's driving, something appears, like a shaggy, clawed monster, like a folk horror monster appears on the hill. Have you guys read this yet, by the way?
No.
Not this one, no.
Okay, so I'll be careful about how far I go. So Michael's acquired some infamy, and is being talked about in the media. And Muti and Johns open one of the chat bots. It's almost like the news program talking about him, but they're not just talking about the story. They're talking about, is this murder? Has he done a wrong thing? So from that point, you get a real sense that this comic is not just about, it's layered. So you can easily say this is about convicts fighting a monster in the snow. Okay, easy, job done. Nice horror movie of the week. But it's more to it than that. You're talking about the judgment and the guilt and the conscience and the revenge of something else against these men. So it's an interesting dynamic he works on. And there's some really bad men in the bus with him. There's a child killer, an arsonist. You can see that's going to come up. A rich man who's a fraudster, and another man who claims he's innocent. And you always hear this about prisons, don't you? Prisons are 90% innocent people.
Yeah. I heard another fucking story about that the other day. It's just like, of course.
Yeah, of course you are, mate.
He didn't do anything.
Yeah. So they hit a truck, and it's abandoned in the middle of the snow, and they get out, and in the front seat of this truck is just a bloody mess. Like something has absolutely torn this person apart, eviscerated him. And so the bus isn't working, so they're like, we got to walk now. And it's fucking freezing, and it's not just snowing, but there's that ice in the air feeling that Muti draws really well. And they have to walk, and almost immediately they start hallucinating, seeing things like Michael sees his son, someone else sees his secretary who he conned into helping con all this money out of people, and these things really begin to haunt them. But what you get is classic horror story. You don't just get the monster attacking them, you get them attacking each other as well.
Yeah, so they're turning on each other.
Yeah, there's that real tension. He says, so Johns has actually said in interviews, this is about judgment within and without, which is the phrase he uses, which I really like this. These men all have demons, and it's about their own demons as well as about this actual fucking physical demon that is haunting them. Lovely pacing. I remember when Johns did 52, and it was a real little firm of writers there, wasn't there? It was Giffen and Morrison and Rucker and all these sort of people. And or was it Wade? I can't remember now. But I remember Morrison saying about him saying he's the best comic writer there is he's ever met. I thought that's a bit of a wild
That's
thing
high,
to say.
high praise.
Yeah, because at the time I thought of Johns as just like a bit of a American dude, good-looking American dude who just wrote superhero stories. And I think what he's talking about is he understands the medium. He knows where the beats are. He knows where the character is. And this is I love a comic that's about people. And the horror is beyond that, and it's overwhelming them, and there's the tension there. But it's lovely.
But that whole setup, the classic setup of like, there's a bunch of people who are all different, and they're forced to work or interact with each other because of a larger thing. And like, there's so many classic horror films that are built on
all
that
of
premise.
our favourites, man.
Yeah,
you know, Alien,
Night of the Living Dead,
The Thing,
Alien,
Night of the Living Dead. Yeah. They're all about that, aren't they? And I think, which is why I said, Vince, you're going to dig this, man. I think you'll like it. There's nothing groundbreaking about it. It's just well made.
Yeah, man, sometimes that's all you need. Is that a story well done?
At the moment, man, it's all we need.
Yeah, that's all we need. More of that, please.
Yeah. It's the art. I remember not liking Andrea Muti's stuff previously when he did a thing about a serial killer on the subway, God, about 8 years ago. But I've really warmed, and this is very accomplished. He manages to mix that ink line with almost a watercolor effect, which works really well in the great outdoors. His facial acting is brilliant in this, really good. You've got everything from a businessman to a black dude to a sort of redneck toothless arsonist to like some straight guys who are the prison guards, who actually one of them's all right, one of them isn't, and you really feel the relationships, and you feel the tension, and you feel the desperation because the radios don't work and the snow's down and they're fucked. You know what I mean? They really are. Really good. Yeah, it's on Global Comics actually. It's just to get Global Comics. I bought it in trade. I've actually got it in the anthologies, and I didn't read it at the time. But it's called The Blizzard. There you go. That's my first one.
Oh man, that sounds fucking ace. I'm gonna put that on my reading list right now.
Cool stuff. Do you want to move on to yours, V?
Yeah. Okay. I will. Okay.
Because your one appeared in another comic this week as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
From the explosive pages of Geiger, in fact.
Yeah.
Now, the world knows him from the comic strip by recently retired cartoonist Muddy Davis. But the truth,
that's a great name.
But the truth stretches back to the Vietnam War, the tragedies of combat and visions of a strange robot soldier that saved Muddy's life there still haunt him. But dreams become reality when Junkyard Joe mysteriously shows up on Muddy's doorstep, warning of a new impending war. Now, I'm talking about the collected edition of Junkyard Joe. This is from Image Comics, because this was pre-Ghost Machine, wasn't it? I believe this came out. I did notice it was Mad Ghost. I can see on the cover for it. It's got the Image logo and then Mad Ghost, which is obviously, I guess, where Ghost Machine was then birthed from.
And it's part of the timeline of Ghost Machine.
Okay, right, okay. I'm going to get the negatives out of the way first. Right? This collection, I think a lot of people will glaze over it. Maybe they might just sort of pass over it because the cover of the collection is a little reveal of a comic book strip in the snow and some blood there. Nothing wrong with the artwork. In terms of the cover for a collection, could be stronger because what's inside is a fucking masterpiece.
It's a lovely book.
This is it's one of my most enjoyable comic reading experiences I've had in fucking years.
Guys, I was so pleased when you dug this because this has been in my top 10 books of the year last 2 years.
And I remember you saying it, Tony, when I started reading it, I was like, oh yeah. I remember you saying there's a certain point where, Joe turns up.
Oh man, I love that point.
At the guy's house. But leading up to that, you have an issue that's set in the Vietnam War, and it's about like brotherhood, and it's it doesn't skimp over the brutality of war, and I mean this is Geoff Johns and Gary Frank. It's their creation, isn't it?
Yeah,
this one. I haven't. Is it the other collaborators?
Brad Anderson.
Brad Anderson, yeah.
I think Rob Lee letters it, isn't he?
Brad Anderson is colorist, Rob Lee is letters. Brian Cunningham is the editor, Steve Blackwell designer. Because there's some lovely design in it as well, like sort of old strips and the way they do torn newspaper and stuff like this. So the whole thing looks lovely. The premise of this is there is a creator who is very much you know, Bill Waterson sort of like, he's created a comic strip that for years has entertained the world, and it's a robot soldier. You know, it's fun, people love it, people have been following it, and then the guy has just recently retired, and like people are like, oh, you're going to make it, you know, they ask it. He keeps very much to himself.
Massive shades of Waterson, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
In fact, there are pages of Calvin and Hobbes within this book.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. They reference that sort of...
Fucking Nixon's in this book.
Yep. Yep. But what immediately draws you to this Muddy Davis is it starts off in the Vietnam War. So you see his story, and then you learn afterwards that he thought he was... You know, this was a trauma. He thought, this couldn't have made sense. So he's been drawing this strip and really been enjoying it. And then Junkyard Joe turns up on his doorstep, and things. It's Spielbergian. This.
I think the important bit before that is a family move next door, don't they?
Yeah.
There's a new sort of family, and he doesn't really want to mix, but they're so nice.
It's got that suburban new family. Who obviously have got their own history and stuff. The lineup of that family is brilliant. They all immediately have individual characters, but they're a good family. You know, they're good characters. Every single character in this book is well fleshed out, and I don't mean that they do loads of exposition. There's no fucking huge backstory for loads of them. It could just be one bit of dialogue that mentions someone in their past, and you immediately know who this character is. And this book. Very close to making me cry.
Yeah, massively.
Very close to making me cry, because there's a scene. Muddy Davis, the reason he has decided to retire is his wife very sadly passed away, and you see a little glimpse of his wife at one point, and it is just, this is, you know, when we talk about characters having a presence in a book without actually having a presence in the book, Muddy Davis's wife is a massive part of this book.
He's a sad dude, isn't he? That's the thing.
Yeah. It is. To talk around it without spoiling it is difficult. It goes at a breakneck sort of pace, but gives the personal moments time to breathe.
I think as soon as you see Junkyard Joe appearing at his house, you know that's not the end of it.
Yeah,
because then you know someone will be after him.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a spoiler.
Yeah. You've got the villains there that are chasing up, so therefore putting the innocent people in peril. You don't quite. There's moments of you're not quite sure. Should we trust Junkyard Joe? You've got all of those sort of little bits, but that's why I really got that sort of Amblin Entertainment sort of Spielberg, the E.T. You know, those sort of things that J.J. Abrams tries to photocopy whenever he makes something. But that whole, you've got it almost feels like real people caught up in this. It's not an enormous story. It just is what it is. And it's only right at the very end that it sprinkles in there's a big universe here that's coming.
Yeah, and we know he's appearing elsewhere.
Yeah. He's on a timeline, for God's sake, in the Ghost Machine timeline. Yeah. This story is the bit on the timeline, isn't it? When he comes back online, I think. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
I fucking loved every moment of this. For me, I mean, Geoff Johns, obviously you've just talked about him, Tony. I wasn't so much reading the DC or caught up in all of that. For me, Geoff Johns is singing when he's doing stuff like this. He's doing his own thing, like the Rook and all of that. I've said on this podcast, I've only just started reading him since the Ghost Machine sort of stuff. And this was a very personal... They clearly loved this. They love creating this character. Gary Frank is on another level.
The faces in this are great.
He's fucking great, Gary.
Muddy's face is the best thing.
Yeah. Muddy's the facial acting that's in it that conveys emotion. And mix that with some lovely poignant bits of dialogue that I'll probably talk to the chaps after we hang up, so we can just talk about those little moments. It's beautiful comics that people may disregard because it just looks like, oh, it's just a robot soldier.
I've got to say, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And me too, Dan. And to be honest, if the Ghost Machine link to this is what drew me into the current a bit more, because I wasn't reading it when Tony was reading it. I've discovered it later. You people out there listening should discover it now.
I think there's a hardback coming out next month.
Yeah.
They're doing like a prestige hardback.
I'll buy that. I'll buy that. I'll buy the fuck
I've just bought the trade paperback.
Oh, you good man.
Nice. But like I say, I wanted to start with just that minor negative because I think it may...
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, I do agree. Yeah.
I can see what they're going for. But
I feel the same a bit about the Blizzard one.
Yeah.
From a distance on a shelf, you don't.
No, it's not doing it.
Yeah,
it's not doing
I think
it.
maybe in some ways they should create some sort of almost like a movie poster aesthetic for some of these collections, so it looks like you look like you're getting it off a VHS rental sort of thing. Because some of the stuff inside is absolutely beautiful. This is just absolutely class.
It's just a load of creators at the top of their game. Yeah, that's for me. They know what they're doing. They're very professional. They're putting out good stories. I mean, there's no one taking LSD trips. It's not, it's not edgy. It's not progressive. It's not dangerous in its content. It's
solid,
well made.
I mean, we've talked about war comics as well. The first issue is the first issue as well. I think the one that's in Vietnam is a war comic. It's totally a war comic, and it has action in it, but there is also trauma that comes up later in the book. Because
that's why it's clever to use Vietnam for me, because Vietnam has that tragic quality. It's almost like programmed into us. It's a bit like the First World War in a way, isn't it? It's like people put through such horrors. I'm sure they are in other worlds as well, but something about that is
Muddy Davis is not a hero of the Vietnam War. He's a survivor, and that's very important to the story. And why it, and also sometimes with these books, when we talk about Ghost Machine, they look so epic and big that some people are like, oh, it's a whole universe. I don't necessarily want to be in that sci-fi sort of thing. This is just a lovely.
You can just read Junkyard Joe. You don't worry about it being connected to anything else. Same as Blizzard, you can just read Blizzard. There's no worry.
Same with Rook, Redcoat, all of them. You just read. You can read them all in a row. They don't really cross too much into each other, do they? I know that they're going to feed into one another, but it's not like
And there's only a hint right in the last page, that something else is happening. Going to be happening.
Same as Blizzard. I just showed you it, didn't they?
Yeah.
They pulled that on the last page. Blizzard.
I think what the contrast is for me is because the stuff they're putting out is so solid and so good. It's contrasted against some of the other shite that's getting put out there. It's just. We talked about it briefly today, but that Wolverine Revenge comic. I read it today. I was like, I couldn't fucking believe that.
It's just a bit half-assed to me, man.
Half-assed. Just going through the motions. Everyone in it.
Yeah.
And like you got these big characters in it, and it just doesn't feel like they're the characters they're supposed to be.
Yeah,
it's like what? That's supposed to be Captain America. Why is he acting like this? And
but
it's real people in this book, and like just.
I said it to you, didn't I? When you read it, I said it's for me. It's the Ghost Machine that's got a heart about it.
Yeah,
this one it really is.
And it starts up. I mean, we've talked about like Vietnam War books in the past as well. And Dan, I think you'll enjoy the sort of the war comic aspect of this as well. I mean, the first bit of dialogue. It's the only bit I'm going to say is just to sign off. Just that I really love this. Double page splash. It's one of those American Vietnam camps. You've got a helicopter flying over the head. You can hear the Jimi Hendrix somewhere, in the background. And there's a group, this platoon, a diverse group of different people, and it just says, we might have all been from different places and believed in different things, but that didn't seem to matter much, because we all wanted the same thing, really. We wanted to go home. And that, I was like, fuck, this is going to be really good.
Things. I've been in things that don't matter, like race, creed, brings you together by doing something like that. Massively.
Yeah. So Junkyard Joe, the highest, and it's certainly we're going to talk about it again at the end of the year. So just prepare yourself.
Yeah, it's going to be Ghost Machine's going to be in the end of the year stuff.
Yeah.
Easy.
And hopefully you'll be able to jump in, Dan, on Junkyard Joe at the end of the year.
Yes. I'll have to bite my tongue till. New Year time.
So that's my.
We can talk about it on our Slack.
That's my first one. Dan, what do you want to recommend?
I've got a book that I backed on Kickstarter. I think I saw it on social media, and I was like, I'm going to give that a shot. And it's called Every Last One from One Shot Studios. It's written by Gary Chudley, art by Danny Coloma, edited by Jack Leviathan, and lettering by some guy called Rob Jones. Never heard of him. The credits page for the comics is quite interesting. It's a homicide report, and I might hold it up to the screen so my fellow I can never really show these fucking things. No, it's too bright the screen. Essentially, it's like a homicide report with the names of the Kickstarter backers, the team who's done the art and created the comic book. I'll give you the Kickstarter blurb, which got me into it. A serial killer is on the loose. A rookie detective and a telepath are on the case. Join the hunt. So it starts off very much as a kind of a police procedural thing where these two detectives, one who's just been kicked out of the CID, he's now working in Glasgow. It's all set in Scotland. And this guy's killed himself. And the two detectives on the case are kind of a bit dumbfounded, not quite sure why it's happened. I've got to say the dialogue in this book is really well done. It felt so naturalistic. Like, you know, sometimes you read dialogue and it's like, oh, that's just words off a script. They're saying this to get to the next bit of line, but it felt like quite a genuine conversation between the police officers. And then it cuts to the aforementioned telepath psychic girl, and she's a kind of a bit of not a layabout, but kind of a young lass who doesn't really take her life too seriously, always late for stuff, but she uses her abilities. She's late for a job, and she basically uses her abilities to make her boss think like she was on time, and there's no problem to that. And her abuse of these abilities is kind of like runs through the story of her kind of failing at life and using her abilities to kind of like smooth over the edges. And it seems like her and the detectives are on kind of like a crash course, because the person who's doing these serial killer murders does seem to share the same abilities she does. So he or she is forcing the other people to kill themselves, and then he just takes all their stuff. So there's a crossover. Why these people got powers? Why is one of them a nutcase killing people? And yeah, it's interesting. I'm really on board for this. The next bit, the art's great. It's not overly rendered. It's the characters' expressions really telling. You know, we mentioned it this week, Tony. The kind of the acting, facial acting, and hand gestures really selling the story. There's a couple of lines in this match that made me laugh out loud, and I'm fucking struggling to find one of them. But being this Scotland, and the writer is quite deadpan, the humour. They're quite cutting. I have to run it past you, T, the way the officers talk to one another, and it's like, okay, I could feel like this would be something maybe that they might say. Obviously, that's an outsider looking in.
Bit train spottery, sort of.
No, kind of
like the book Trainspotting, that sort of thing.
No, like they're kind of like they're officials doing their jobs, and they're kind of like quite matter of fact about it. And it's like, well, he's not done that. And he's like, well, he's a bit of a fucking wally then, isn't he? And so yeah, I look forward to seeing more of that. That was a good one. So go check that out. And that was, I forget the name of the fucking book now. Every Last One from One Shot Studios. Go check it out.
Nice.
Cool.
I got another quick one. This is a book that I picked up. I actually there's a Kickstarter for issue 2 coming up soon. But the artist Jason Piperberg just put a shout out a little while ago, just sort of saying we've got an upcoming project. You know, this book's better come out. Does anyone want to check it out? Got in touch with him. I loved his artwork on some of his previous books. This is with Dillon Gilbertson. Is the writer, art and letters Jason Piperberg, colours Luca Romano, and this is My Neighbour Necromancer, issue 1. And this is a self-published book. It is basically a story about an upbeat 12-year-old girl who stumbles upon a cabin in the woods where she finds a friendly necromancer hiding with an ancient secret. But her presence has revealed his location. Now she must learn to raise the dead herself to prevent the forces of evil from obtaining the ultimate power, the literal hand of death itself. That talks a bit more about the bigger story rather than the first issue. The first issue, which is a lovely sort of introduction to this. It's if it was a book, it'd be like it's I think it's sort of an all ages kind of audience, even though it's dealing with necromancy and death and things coming back to life. But we aren't.
Looks that way to me.
Yeah. But we're not talking gruesome, zombies and stuff, skeletons popping out of the ground, magic and glowing and stuff like that. It's the perfect combination of concept, writing and artist and stuff, because it's a lovely looking book. These guys have obviously kickstarted it and made it all themselves. They clearly care about this project, and it is something that, once again, much like Junkyard Joe, it knows the realm that it's sitting in, is comfortable with it, and just rides that sort of atmosphere and the playfulness of it really well. It isn't something that it's not a story that you immediately think, oh, they're just doing it for a toy line, or they're doing it for an animation or something like that. It's just a nice little comic book story.
Well drawn, man. Yeah, good art.
It's so. Yeah. I was looking at it going, Piperberg, man. Obviously this is great that these guys can come together and like make the books that they want to make. Piperberg could quite easily be on a fucking actually he wouldn't get paid enough on a big 2 book. Do you know what I mean? But
the one little thing I would have that would push it up, I think they need to consider the colouring. I think the colouring
I like the brightness of it.
Did you? See, I didn't like that so much. I found page to page it jumped a bit. They need to think about setting a set of colours.
I mean, there is it is that sort of suburban house, and then we move to a little house in the forest. So there's lots of similar palettes going.
Maybe some blending of it. It's colour rather than colour shadows.
Because it is, you hear like My Neighbour Necromancer, and you hear the word necromancy, you probably think it's going to be darks and shadows and stuff. This is very much like a colourful.
Very much so.
It is a colourful book, and all it works better for it. They're a magic. That you've got a clearly defined villain. You've got a mysterious sort of like the old man who he can raise the dead, but he's the sort of not the Obi-Wan. That's a poor sort of comparison, but it maybe follows those sort of tropes. But because
the mentor kind of
as the synopsis says, the little girl then has to learn the powers herself in order to sort of fight the villains. It's a lovely issue 1. They get the pacing right. There's no real gap in. It's got energy from page to page. There's no. Sometimes I find with some of these introductory issues, it takes a little while to you got to think, okay, when is the story?
I know it's full of action. This one, yeah.
Even when it's like the girl with her mum in the house, you know where you're going. She's got a pet lizard. It's just, I think
you've got to do that. I think with Kickstarters you're less likely to get that because they're trying to get a load of story out because there's not going to be another one for a while. It's the people like Boom and IDW and Image who it's so decompressed. It's like nothing fucking happens in the first issue. This one loads happens in the first issue.
This could be a book with one of those publishers. Do you know what I mean? The second, they're kickstarting issue 2. I think it's in the next couple of weeks. You can go on Kickstarter and just look for My Neighbour. That's neighbour without the U, so it's the American spelling of neighbour. Necromancer.
The wrong spelling.
You'll find that it only just sort of completed its funding on the first issue. And I hope they smash it because this one. I've seen books that fucking absolutely smash it that don't deserve the money they get.
Massive, mate. Tell me about it. Yeah.
Right, and but this one is just quality all the way through. God bless the creators. I think that they're just making stories that they want to make, and it's fun. We were talking. We just want fun comic. We just want
fun,
well made.
You don't have to think too much about it. You can just enjoy a story.
I don't want to enter the astral plane necessarily.
No,
I just want a good readable comic these days.
No.
Yeah. I used to search for that, the next sort of more cocking comics, but no, I just want good stories, man.
Yeah, totally. And if you want more of Jason Piperberg's art, he was the creator of the Spaceman and Bloater series, which I remember talking about way back.
All right.
I picked it up on Comixology for nothing. He's a great.
Oh, good.
Great.
That's a deep cut, like the Chinese Dad one.
Yeah, like Dan's Chinese Dad.
Chinese Dad. Oh dear, got the name of this episode? No, I'm not going to call it that.
I'll bring him in.
Just call it Dan's Dad.
Tony, what have you got?
Final one is a quickie. Consume Comics by Dillon Henty. I spoke about Dillon a couple of weeks ago with the Black Ink Comics. I just saw it came out on the pod Instagram and ordered a comic very nicely. Not only did I get the A5 comic also got a 3x3. It's about 3x3 ink sketch. There's a cool little opening page. I'll run you through it. So Dillon it's autobiographical. The opening page. Dillon's there, and he's all excited. And he unboxes his own action figure from a box, which he then swallows. The action figure grows, bursts out of him, and replaces him. And the replacement, Dillon says, "Are you ready for some hilarious and timely insight? Sometimes I hate everything." I thought, yeah, I feel your pain there, Mr. Henty. The second story after that one is one I'd already seen. It had already appeared in an anthology that I'd reviewed previously. But the second story is a one-pager called Mr. Chihuahua in Big City Anxiety. And being the owner of a Chihuahua, who is a fucking bastard, this is about a Chihuahua who sits dressed as a human in a cafe. He gets discovered by the men in there who chase him, fully intending to eat him. That's the one-pager. So you can see, I mean, Dillon's is this sort of new wave of underground. I like it. I like that sort of stuff. I like that sort of. I mean, we've gone from the polished to the purposely unpolished now, haven't we? Really, with an underground comic. The second story in it is I really liked. It's called Butch. I'm not going to do every story, but I picked a couple out. Butch Manley presents a solution to global warming for the modern age. I think, that's good because I know we're big fans of backgrounds of global warming on this podcast.
So against the background of, that's great.
Yeah. This in no way reflects the title, but it purposely doesn't. So Butch is a man's man, as his name suggests, and he eats lots of steak and he drives an 18-wheel monster truck. He's decided that rather than global warming killing the planet, he's going to kill the planet himself. And he does stuff like he nukes the glaciers, he uses a flamethrower to flame up cows, and he even machine guns the ground. So draw your own conclusions.
Fucking great! What a leg.
Satire there. Other stories include a serial killer who shows you how to make a cup of instant coffee badly, a talking burger in an endless restaurant where there's only one thing on the menu. My favourite 2 words in the comic: undead wellies, and there's a callback as well to the front page. Just fun short stories, how an underground comic should be, black and white. He's got a lovely style. There's a dirty, spotty nature to his style, but a sort of lovely, purposely shaky, wavy line to his thick line. I'm looking forward to the next one. So if you go to Dillon, Dyllan, Dillon Henty, Henty, DillonHentyComics.bigcartel.com, you can find them and buy something. I think it's almost sold out. But the thing is, with small press and underground, you've got to jump on it, haven't you? Otherwise, it's gone. Mad,
yeah,
really.
Just want to see it again.
And I can't imagine this is going to be like on Comixology or something. It's Instagram Dillon and then Hnety. So if you reverse the E and the N in Henty, Dillon Henty, you'll find him as well. But he's part of that little crew. I really like those guys. Consume comics. There you go. That's my second one.
It reminded me of a story I read a little while ago about a guy who got arrested for trying to. This is not a joke. It's a real story. I read it. Fargo man arrested for clearing snow with flamethrower. Fox stated he simply fed up with battling the elements and he did not possess the willpower necessary to move 4 billion tons of white bullshit. Just down his driver a flamethrower, blasting the snow.
Amazing. Okay, now I'll think about that when the next winter kicks in. Wow.
That angry man.
Yeah. And what a way to sign off this week's episode. Yes. We have spoken. It's been so much fun this week talking about making comics, thinking about our own creations, and talking about some amazing books that you should be checking out, as well as Silverback comic. Thanks to Rich again for joining us, and be sure to check out the webcomic. And there's several different ways you can get in touch with us if you want to know what else you want us to talk about, or if you've got any sort of comics you got coming up. If you want to shout out any Kickstarters or any charity drives, etc., all that sort of stuff, get in touch with us and we'll shout them out on the show. There's several different ways you can get in touch with us. You can email us, awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media at awesomecomicspod on Instagram and at the awesomepod on Twitter or X. Do it, Dan. Yeah, he's actually putting up an X sign there.
Put his guns up.
Yeah. Steamy. And thank you for listening to us, whether it's on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. if you listen to us on Apple Podcast, subscribe, leave a review. Helps get the word out about the show and everything we talk about on a daily basis. What, daily? Wow, we do daily WhatsApp each other, but
yeah.
And on the Slack, we're daily on the Slack, aren't we?
Yep. Which I'll shout out in a second.
Sometimes I think when Vince opens up his phone in the morning, me and Tony have been gassing on the WhatsApp. It's like ping, 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 ping. This
Look, I fucking turn the notifications off ages ago. I know what you feel like. No, it just means I've got something to read for the first 30 minutes of my fucking day. Anyway,
we've been taking longer shits due to our get piles that way.
Yeah, plenty of protein. Anyway, we're on Spotify. You can leave a nice comment there. We're also on Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What other networks are we on, Tony?
We're on the network. Shanice, your mouth is moving a lot like a rat. Yappa, yappa, yappa. Please be quiet, Shanice.
That's a punchy title for
that is. They could have just shortened it to Yappa Yappa Yappa.
Yeah.
Network.
It was almost going to be the other network. Peel the avocado, guacamole, guacamole.
Yeah. Well, I have to put that audio in now for context.
You will, won't you?
But where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
Neveronanything.com.
Nice. Dan?
You can find me on Twitter, aka X, at Vanguard. And you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
Nice. You can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. This is just the tip of an iceberg that I think we're going to be talking about creation and we're going to be asking ourselves some very interesting questions, and be sure to keep the conversation going, especially on Slack. Join our Slack community, because there's a wonderful community of creators, readers, and all kinds on there. Get in touch with us to find out how to join that. It's great group of
There's people on there just like you, talking comics and
don't forget, there's a few issues of DUI, issues 2 and 3 in physical condition that you can buy. So reach out and I'll put you in touch with the person who's got them.
Bro.
Nice.
Do that.
So until next week, when we've got loads more comics to read, so we're going to get to reading them now. And until next time, same bat channel from Dan, Tony, and myself. I almost said my own name then. That would have been weird. And Vince might be here as well. Have a brilliant week.
Good.
Read loads of comics. Keep making loads of comics. And as always, what should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Wow, that was amazing.
Spot on.
I don't know why I'm
Amazing.
surprised.
Yeah.
You're beautiful.
Fucking
Play us out, Vince.
Well, here we go.
You